In the first part of the Star Wars Reboot video, I mentioned that I wrote out a fan casting segment to see exactly who can make it possible, who can make my vision, and who can make Star Wars what it was meant to be. I reviewed the original script, fleshed it out a bit more, here it is. I think the right person to direct the Skywalker Saga reboot is none other than Brad Bird. Known for his work on films like The Incredibles and The Iron Giant, there is absolutely no way that he would fail to make the stakes real and the emotions high, which would fix the very first issue that I brought up. Not to mention, a lot of the stakes in Star Wars are about familial relationships, which is exactly what The Incredibles was always about. Combine that with the hope and tragedy he's amazing at displaying. Just watch The Iron Giant, and if you have watched it again, he'd be the perfect director for an action-packed, dramatic, heartwarming, hopeful, tragic, and all-around enjoyable variant of the Skywalker saga. With Brad Bird, I think the lead writer of the film should be Michael Schur. Known for his work on Parks and Recreation, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and most of all, The Good Place, I think a lot of his strengths would apply here. Of course, everything I've mentioned so far is in television, not movies, but I think that's a bit of a strength here. It is a series of 9 movies, about 8 hours total runtime. His most recent show, A Man on the Inside, is almost 4 hours in total runtime. Not to mention the story is already written out. We need better dialogue, structure, and maybe more comedy. And that's exactly what he's best at. If you don't believe he can take an idea and spin it into something emotional, enjoyable, kind of philosophical, and entirely his own, you clearly need to watch The Good Place. And if you have, pause this video and go watch it again. I'll wait. That brings me to the cast. Of course, characters like Rey and young Luke are defined by the fact that they don't come from anywhere special and are absolute nobodies, so they should generally be kept as unknown actors. But I think there are a few roles that should absolutely be cast. For example, Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu. I literally cannot see anyone else in this role. To me personally, his personality is being Sam Jackson, and I don't really know who else could play him. Does anyone else have an idea? Anyway, I don't really want to keep casting legacy actors, but I do think Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman as Qui-Gon Jinn and Shmi Skywalker, respectively, could work. Neither characters are around for very long, especially before cutting down Phantom Menace, and I think it would be really interesting to see these two in another role that's not entirely unlike the ones they've already played, but still a bit older and different. Overall, I think this would be really fun to see, especially in that scene where he asked to crash to her place, because he could be like, hey, could we stay here for a while? I
don't like sand.
I don't know, I just think it would be a fun dynamic. Now, hear me out here. And you might really have to hear me out here because while this is my favorite idea, I am 2 for 2 and both of my little siblings hating it, but Tom Blythe is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, anyone who's seen The Ballad of Songbird and Snakes, what he's most famous for, is probably going to say something like, why not Anakin? Coriolanus is way more similar to Anakin than Obi-Wan, to which, in a sense, I agree. I did kind of maybe write a whole fan fiction based on Coriolanus and Anakin's similarities called The Ballad of Sin and Sith, and it's on an archive of our own, but we also have to remember that A, no actor should be defined by a single role forever, and B, if we are going down that road, emotionally speaking, the acting range required for Coriolanus is quite similar to that of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Be it the strong sense of duty to the guilt that comes when you betray your bestie due to your strong sense of duty, Tom Blythe has proven way beyond a reasonable doubt that he's the man for the job. Combine that with his age, face, almost British voice, and the fact that behind the scenes, I think he's actually quite similar to Obi-Wan, I think he's absolutely perfect for the role. Plus, while writing this, I found this interview detailing how much of a Star Wars fanboy he was. Probably still is. I'm sure he'd take very good care of Obi-Wan and bring great talent to the role as a worthy successor to Ewan McGregor. And Mom, if you're watching this, I cast him before I realized I would put him right next to Hayden Christensen for the majority of Phantom Menace. I did not do that on purpose. If this does ever happen, though, I'm sure we'd have a field day over it. Speaking of adorable British guys, 3PO's 2 main character traits are British and timid. I give you Tom Holland. I think this one's pretty self-explanatory. 3PO rarely knows what's going on in its entirety, same for Tom Holland. Combine that with the adorable awkwardness he seems to bring to every role, I think we got a pretty good 3PO. Now, Padme. Padme gets a little complicated, especially if we are splitting her into 2 characters, but I think Haley Steinfeld completely works. Especially in her role in the Hawkeye series as Kate Bishop, she shows that she can do action scenes, comedy bits, as well as deeper, more emotional parts. She can do the brave, honorable queen, as well as the soft, understanding wife character. Though if we are splitting Padme into 2 people, I also nominate myself as Padme. I think I'm making quite a few changes to her character. I think I worded it really confusingly. And if we are going with this drastic change, we need somebody who fully understands it and can get inside the head of a basically all-new character. We need somebody who is involved in creating her. And that narrows it down to basically myself and my father, who I'm sure would do it if I asked, but only one of us wrote the script, and I do not intentionally plagiarize. Not to mention, I don't know, I kind of want to be Padme. Don't get me wrong, I really want to play Annie, but I like acting, and I like this character, and I want to do it. Now, of course, do it is one of the many iconic phrases of Emperor Chief Palpatine. Ian McDiarmid, longtime Shakespearean actor, has been rocking the part for at least 36 years. From my understanding, he seems to absolutely love the role. We all love him in the role, and I would absolutely love to continue to keep casting him. But at the same time, I also think it would be fun to give somebody else a shot. Somebody can be pure evil and have fun at the same time. I give you Mark Evan Jackson. I'm assuming you've all seen The Good Place, as I told everybody to pause the video and watch or rewatch it. And as such, you all know that he basically played this same character in The Good Place. You know, a demon hellspawn who designs methods of torture for fun. He managed to be funny and intimidatingly pure evil, while not really even change anything he's doing in character. Palps is both things. If there's one man for the job, it's Ian McDiarmid. But if there's another, I see Mark Evan Jackson as a worthy successor. Now, a more minor character, but an important one, Lando. Han's bestie, who kind of betrays him, comes back for him, works with Luke, and in 9 leads Fleet alongside Poe, who you'll notice I didn't have many notes about because he's one of my favorite characters. But anyway, Lando. Fun character, important character, and crucial character. Fortunately, I have the very straightforward pick of Donald Glover, known for playing Troy Barnes in Community, as well as the younger version of Lando in the Solo movie. He's already mastered and understands the character, and also, who doesn't like Donald Glover? Pause this video and search Donald Glover comedy special, watch one, and see if you come back for another. I watched like 7 this way after a particular long day at school. Or was it the weekend? I don't really remember anything else about that day because he is hilarious and wonderful and absolutely perfect for Lando. While we're on Community cast members, Joel McHale for older Han Solo, anybody? I know it's hard to see any not Harrison Ford as Han, but if Han is a gruff, couldn't-care-less attitude, down-on-his-luck divorced dad, I think Joel McHale can handle himself. Given I didn't watch Animal Control, but an older man constantly annoyed by his younger counterparts while still caring about them is pretty much exactly his role in Community, and that is how I see older Han Solo. Now, older Luke Skywalker, however, is more flexible, as I like the older version of him, but at the same time agree he could have been developed in a way that makes more sense. In my mind, he's the same pure soul from the original trilogy, just broken down by the world around him, which is what I believe Mark Hamill tried to do with the character for 8. Don't quote me on that, do your own research, but also, Mark Hamill, beautiful, wonderful, brilliant Mark Hamill, had his own Luke Skywalker fan cast, Sebastian Stan, who is perfect. Sweet guy in real life, perfect to continue the purity of the original character, but has also had his fair share of broken rage monsters, and that experience could very well add to the character and explain why he is the way he is. Continuing with sequels characters, I established Poe Dameron as one of my favorites. He's sarcastic, brave, adorable with Finn, and not to mention I'm a bit of an Oscar Isaac fangirl. I would absolutely love to have him continue the role as much as possible. If there's one man for the job, it's him. But if I'm doing what I did with Palps and want to bring in another person with a slightly different interpretation of the character, might I suggest Simu Liu. He'd be a bit warmer, more earnest, sure, but I don't think his character would hurt from a bit more vulnerability. On the topic of sequel characters who deserves better, Supreme Leader Snoke is played by motion capture legend Andy Serkis. At the time of writing this, I haven't decided exactly what I want to do with Snoke yet. I wanted to write something about him, but I couldn't think of anything. But Andy Serkis was great in this role, and I would love to see him have fun with another motion capture character, General Grievous, who was trained in your Jedi arts by Count Dooku, who was played by correcting George Lucas on what decapitation sounds like Christopher Lee. Now, of course, nobody can ever replace only Lord of the Rings cast member to meet J.R.R. Tolkien, Christopher Lee. His death in 2015 after a 93-year life, including service in 2 wars, climbing an active volcano, acting on stage and screen, over accumulating 300 roles, becoming a legendary singer in both opera and heavy metal, and that's not even half of it, was the loss of an absolute legend, and somebody absolutely nobody can replace. However, he was by no means the only multi-talented British legend. If you need an actor who can do anything, and I mean anything, call Barney Cabbage Patch. Known for Doctor Strange, The Grinch, The Hobbit, Sherlock Holmes, The Intimidation Game, Star Trek, and about 92 other things, is there anything he can't do? Well, replace Christopher Lee. But he can absolutely play Count Dooku with a mastery that no one else can. Also, my little brother would like to note that he thinks Chewbacca should be played by a girl because he thinks it would be funny. He specifically mentioned Natalie Portman. He was also very insistent that Hayden Christensen should remain in his role as Anakin, and I mean, I'm not against it, especially if he's in the Darth Vader suit, but I do think it would look weird if he was also Qui-Gon. But of course, these are just my thoughts. What about yours? Do you agree with any castings? If anyone I cast or put in charge of watching, would you like to be a part of this? Let me know, and as always,
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.